Hi, welcome back to the Harpreet Singh Show, and you're watching Tania's Truth Talk. And we've got Tony Nassif on the air right now from Los Angeles, California. Tony is a personal and dear friend of mine. He's the founder of the Preventing Abuse organization, and he is a modern-day abolitionist, but an old-fashioned man of God. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Tania, as always, it's great to be with you.
You too. And Tony, I look so forward to seeing you at the upcoming conference. It's going to be on August 9th and 10th in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I wanted to discuss this conference in particular with you on this show, Tony, because I've spoken at several of your conferences in the past and will be more in the future, but it really seems that these conferences are gaining a momentum, and the one that's going to be in August is going to be thus far the mother of all conferences, where it's going to go about 2 days. It's going to have approximately 16 international guest speakers that are the heaviest of hitters in the business, ranging from former human trafficking victims to Playboy models to former CIA, FBI agents, myself. Tell me more about this and what is happening with this movement that you're starting.
Well, I'm from Cedar Rapids originally, and for some odd reason, God is taking me back to Iowa. We held a conference in Des Moines, which was absolutely astronomical. And you're in the first 3 hours, it was you, Baz, and Oscar, who you had on your show before, and I was watching the audience, and they were spellbound. And after each presentation, there was a thunderous, momentous standing ovation. And then
for me to just interject there, Tony, I mean, I travel the world as an international speaker, and in all of my travels, I have never been to a conference in my entire life that has been as good as the one that I went to in Iowa the last time. So now with the stuff that's coming on in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, the upcoming one in August, I mean, this is just going to be the mother of all conferences I've ever been to, I think.
Yeah, here's the story. I never take a conference into any city God has not told me to go. And sometimes I'll go to a city where I don't want to go. But anyway, here's the story with Iowa. He told me to go to Cedar Rapids. As a result, we're finding out there is a great number of attempted child abductions in the Cedar Rapids and in Iowa area. I mean, just a multiplied number. And there's a real supernatural activity going on in Iowa. God is doing a move. The evil ones are doing a move. And this whole thing with trafficking, child exploitation, there's always a satanic root that people overlook, and they just think, well, that's just an everyday problem. That's something terrible. But there's always a satanic strategy underlying it. And
now, how would you explain that, Tony, to any of the viewers that are watching that are of a different faith other than Christianity, or who have no faith in all, anything, when you're saying that there's a satanic root to that? Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, of course. In this world, regardless of what faith you believe, all the major faiths believe in the reality of evil. And this is what's happening. The evil has a marked goal of defiling innocence and bringing destruction upon a people. For the Judeo-Christian ethic and for what the world is seeing from a satanic, demonic point of view, there's an attempt to destroy. And so that's one aspect. Then there's the natural, the human aspect, and that's where you have the perverts, the men who want to exploit children for their own self-gratification and profit. That's just a money issue, and it's a deviant money issue. Now, somebody said to me, I can't believe somebody would do this to children. I said, that's because you're not realizing and considering the reality of evil. Now, Tania, this conference in Iowa, we're going to deal with 4 major issues. We're going to deal with human trafficking. That is the commercial sexual exploitation of women and children, primarily for sex. We're going to deal with child abduction. There's 1.2 million children a year reported missing in America alone. And there's nearly 100,000 to a million children in the sex slave industry in America. Number
Yes.
three, we're going to deal with internet safety. According to the head of the FBI, internet child pornography is the fastest growing on the internet, and they cannot control it. Now, number four,
Yes.
and finally, we're going to deal with the drug cartels. Now, in the drug cartels,
Yep.
they're not just dealing with drugs, they're dealing with the human trafficking, they're dealing with the infiltration into the government and businesses of the United States. Years ago,
Right.
they have infiltrated hundreds of American cities. Now it's pervasive. So we've got the experts
Right.
coming in. We've got the victims who've been freed coming in. We've got
Yes.
organizations that are coming in who help the victims be restored to humanity. And one of the greatest survivors that I know that's coming in to speak at this conference is a lady by the name of Tania Fiolleau of the Save the Women. And there you have it. That's the
Thank you,
capsule.
Tony. Tony, explain to me why it is that you have handpicked the diversity of speakers that you have for your conferences.
You know, that's a great question, Tania, because you can have a great conference, but if you got the wrong speakers, it'll be just real boring.
Yes.
Number one, I look at the credibility and the background of each speaker to each coordinated subject. Are they the most qualified that I see for this group that we're going to reach out to? We just don't throw on a conference and hope people come. We target different groups of people.
Right.
The groups of people we're targeting this time are faith-based. We're targeting the general public
Yeah.
and law enforcement.
Right.
Now, believe it or not, we've been told that many perpetrators even try to infiltrate. And somebody said to me, "What would you say to anyone who's a perpetrator who's in the audience?" I said, "I'd tell them repent."
Right.
And so we've got people like you. You're an expert. We've got Baz, who's an expert. And so we take these subjects that we want to deal with. We find the pros, and we find out how well they communicate the message. Now,
Right.
this is very key, Tania.
Okay.
The speakers we have are very articulate. They're very succinct. They get to the point. And as I said, they all receive a standing ovation because their presentations are so astronomical.
Yes, absolutely, and I would totally agree with you. And explain, Tony, the different diversities of the audience that comes to these conferences.
Yes, now that's a very good question. In our conference, for example, in Orlando, after the conference, somebody came up and told me that there was weeping heard throughout the audience. I
Yes.
said, "Why is that?" She said, "Because many of the attendees were victims,
Yes.
and the victims don't know where to go to be healed."
Right.
Tania, there's a spiritual dynamic to this whole thing,
Yes.
and that is the human soul. When a human soul is exploited and sexually abused, the soul is ripped. And no therapy in the world can heal the human soul because it's not human. The soul is a spiritual entity.
I totally am with you there. I mean, I was a victim of rape at the age of 11. I was victimized and raped, and my innocence was taken. I was also a human trafficking victim. And no matter how much counseling or anything that I've ever been through, nothing healed my soul other than Jesus Christ.
Right. And so we're aware of that. Now, another group of people that we target, we focus to have come in are the churches. The church is the key, and I'll tell you why. It's the largest grassroots movement the world's ever known.
Yes.
The key, you ask any law enforcement, and they will tell you the importance of solving crimes and protecting the city and the nation is active involvement of grassroots people.
Right.
And so that's another group. We're going to have law enforcement who will come and be educated about things they may not know about. And then they're going to be speaking. We're going to have law enforcement there sharing. And so that's just for starters, Tania.
We're going to get more into this after the commercial break, Tony. Please tune in after the commercial break to tonight's True Talk on the Harpreet Singh Show, because there's a lot more great information that we'd like to share with you in regards to the demonic realm and the highest of levels in human trafficking that the public has no idea or awareness of what's going on.